Hello and welcome to Coffee with Dr. Carla. I'm Dr. Carla. I have Kirsten here with me today. We're glad you're here joining us for this conversation. And our goal today is to talk about some mental health related issues and hopefully start to end the stigma surrounding them. So I'm the oldest of three. I have a brother 4 years younger than me, and then another one 10 years younger than me. And I distinctly remember going to baseball games as a kid when one or both of them were playing. And I also very distinctly, this is rec ball, right?
Yeah.
Back in that day, we didn't have travel ball and stuff like that, like we do now. But
Mhm.
but I very distinctly remembering those key parents
Yeah.
who were loud, screaming, belittling, and even as a kid, even though I was there, watching my brothers, or I was the one often to walk them up to the park or something like
Yeah.
that, right? You could hear these people screaming, and I remember as a kid going, you're screaming? I don't need to be by you. And I remember thinking, shut up, you're bothering us. I can't imagine you're not bothering them.
And
Like,
if a kid can realize that, like, how is the adult?
right?
Yeah.
And maybe I didn't have the clear words then, but I knew that something wasn't right about
Hmm.
that, right? And and I've heard so often athletes deciding to continue to uh, be in whatever support because if I quit, my dad will or my mom will.
Yeah.
My parents can't begin to understand, why are you in that sport? Well, my dad was a wrestler too, so I'm a
Yeah.
wrestler. Do you like wrestling? No.
No.
Right. Like, so, and then we have the coaches.
Yeah.
Like I have a memory of my youngest brother. He quit high school basketball and he was pretty good. And I mean, not good enough to go pro, but I mean, he was good in the realm of high school, right?
Yeah.
And that particular coach would swear at them all the time, actually hit some of the kids, and just really was abusive,
Yeah.
right? And so, and I'm not saying that that's how all coaches are, but like parents and coaches, they can make or break
Yeah.
somebody, right? And there's such craziness around what goes on, right? And so, um, as a mental performance consultant, how do you help athletes navigate either this overly destructive uh, involvement, or there's the opposite? My parents never come. They don't really care if I show up or don't show up, right? And how do you help them navigate perhaps coaches that are not the best fit for them?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a beautiful, horrible thing that coaches
Right?
and parents have so much of an impact on the child's experience and their self-esteem and all of that. And I'm speaking mostly of athletes, and when I think of
Sure.
sport, um, yeah, I don't think they realize the weight of their words and just their presence and their facial expressions and
Right.
the
I'm just enthusiastic about it. Word
right.
choices suck. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's another difficult thing is adults that think they have great intentions, and I believe that they do. It's hard for them to recognize what's impacting an athlete, and an athlete being too afraid to tell mom or dad, or not feeling comfortable with coach enough to say, hey, like that doesn't make me feel good. That bothers me when you say this, or things like that. And so I think there's kind of two important pieces, right? The athlete and then the adults in their life. So the adults needing to a become more aware of the power that they hold and the weight of their words, and try to understand their athletes' experience more and learn more about their needs and their struggles and how they respond to different things, and the educational piece.
And the sad part is, while I think we can get a, a really solid, uh, you know, group of people saying they agree with that, right?
Yeah.
Um, Making that happen is a different
Oh
story.
yeah.
And in fact, it's funny. I think back on some of these more vocal
Mm-hmm.
adults, they would be the first one to say that we need to educate these, and they will be the last ones to actually take part in it,
Right.
right? So, unfortunately, as an athlete, you don't have control over those people, but you have
Right.
control over yourself, and that
Yeah.
gets to be really dicey at times, right?
Yeah. So that's the second piece is like, yes, we hope they learn more and, emphasize effort and attitude instead of whether or not you scored. But at the end of the day, who knows? Coach is going to yell if coach is going to yell. So the work that I do with athletes that have issues with coaches or pressure from mom and dad is getting them to a point where they're secure enough and empowered in their own experiences that they can let those things. They can take, some coaches, the criticism, sure, that you don't want to be not coachable, but you also, there's a block there of this isn't going to change the way I feel about myself as a person.
I'm gonna
This
filter
isn't
it
gonna,
in a particular way, right? Yeah.
right. Or I'm able to pick and choose when something, if I've just made a mistake on the soccer field and coach is screaming his head off, I can understand. Yes, obviously I'm the one that made the mistake. I already know it was bad. I can just kind of ignore, whatever's going on. And it's tricky because we want to be respectful and all that good stuff, but you also need at a certain point to put yourself first and learn when to kind of let things roll off. And that's a really tricky thing to learn, especially when you're the kid and they're the adult and there's this power dynamic and they call the shots. They decide if you get playing time, they decide, things like that are going to make you hesitant to push back at all.
Well, and as a minor, you have less, autonomy in these things, right? Like once you turn 18, there might be a little bit more. So if you're playing at the collegiate or the elite or professional level, obviously then right. Well, there's maturity, but those same things, those same dynamics with the other adults in their lives shows up, right? And so if you haven't figured out how to deal with them as a kid, it's going to be that much harder as an adult, right? Because I know adults who want to end a athletic career and are afraid to do so because they don't want to disappoint their parent in their 20s. And so so you're never, that dynamic doesn't exactly go away just because you suddenly are 25 years old or whatever, right? So, okay. So let's assume we've got parents and coaches, the other adults that are around, and they're willing to, work on their part, right? We got willing participants. What are some key elements that you want, those adults, those parents, those coaches to understand or to take away?
I think the number one thing that you can do for your child or your athlete is to create a safe space. So that's in terms of their performance. So when you're, giving feedback, being mindful of the way that you're giving feedback, when you're giving support and praise, being mindful of what are you praising? Are you only ever telling them good job when they win? Are you only ever saying good job when they run a PR or score a basket? Or are you saying you were an excellent leader out there? You are such a good teammate. I can tell you were tired, but you didn't give up. Are you
those types of things?
Yeah, are you being mindful about what you're saying? So that's creating a safe space for them. And then additionally, creating a space in which they can feel comfortable talking to you. So we're empowering them. We're telling them to learn more about themselves as athletes and what do they need. But if they don't feel comfortable talking about that, or if they wouldn't feel comfortable saying, hey, I don't love wrestling. I know you wrestled, but I don't want to wrestle. Then that's an issue.
No matter how good I am at it.
Right. So creating a space for both of those things to happen. So in terms of performance and then outside of performance, being able to talk about practice without them thinking, oh my gosh, dad's going to ask me about why I, missed that goal. And I'm dreading this car ride home.
Yeah. Like, what are you doing out there? Right.
Right. So being able to have productive and healthy conversations. So it's all about creating a safe space.
Yeah. And I know that it's never too early to start this process and it's never too late to start this process. Yeah. So my grandson does Taekwondo. And after every practice I take him to, he'll say, how did I do? And I say, I don't know. You tell me. Yeah. And I said, okay, what are some things you did great? And so he would tell me a couple of things. What do you think we need to work on? And he'll tell me a couple of things. And I'm like, that's the way to think about it. And we go about our business. Now, we're not always perfect, but, the reality of it is, even at, we started doing that when he was 5, right? And so we're really looking for him to do that. And I bring back, the nice thing is each belt has a different focus. So whenever we're doing this, I bring it to whatever the focus is. So he often is the highest belt in his class, right? At least he was up until he turned 6, right? And so he had to be the leader. It's okay. Yes, all your friends who are the same age as you want to roll around the ground, but how are you going to show to be a leader, right?
Yeah.
And so we were able to talk about those things, and so it's good, right?
Mhm.
But I also know people um, who are much older and don't have that, never had that experience.
Right.
It's not too late to start that experience with your kid, whether they're a minor or they're
Yeah.
over
Or
18,
implement things as a coach.
right? Or even implement things
Yeah.
as a coach, right? Yeah. And then of course, we're biased, and I think it's really important that a lot of these athletic organizations really start to realize that coaches can use mental skills in their coaching, but they are not mental skill
Yeah.
consultants. And so to bring on a professional that whose sole focus is on those mental skills
Yeah.
really can make a difference. So, and if your athletic organization doesn't have that, it's simple enough to seek those people out and get that help for your child, or even as a team saying several players on the team saying, hey, we know we need this, and maybe they collaborate to work with somebody who's a professional. So so key that to have that athlete have the support, positive, healthy support of those adults that are around them. So thank you. Remember, you can change your thoughts, discover your potential, and transform your life by focusing on your overall well-being. So until next time, continue working on being the best you possible. Bye.